So 2023 was an interesting year for my flying. Certainly gained a lot more experience. Didn't do as much flying as I expected, but that's the nature of the beast, nature of the things that we do. It started off quite well. January, I started my night flying rating and completed it. Night flying is one of those things that you have to have a rating for. And in all honesty, it's lovely flying at night, apart from the fact there's always this thing in the back of your mind that if things go wrong, normally in single-engine aircraft, I can look for a field, land in the field. At night, look for a field? No, what you're actually doing is just looking for a black space. It could be a field, it could be an industrial estate that didn't have any buildings on it, it could be a power station for all I knew, it could be a lake. The problem is, your options for landing at night are few and far between. Unlike the Americans, who seem to have this propensity for landing on roads, we generally don't train for landing on roads, mainly because UK roads are quite windy, there's lots of street furniture. The likelihood of successfully landing on a road in the UK is probably pretty slim. It's not something I've been trained for, and certainly not something I'm going to try. I'll go for the nice grassy field. But I managed to clock the night flying rating up. I also did a couple of flights in January, one of which there's a video which is coming up this side, I think. I can never remember which side the videos go, but basically coming up this side to Beccles, lovely little airfield in the eastern side of England. I was about to say East Anglia. I think it's East Anglia, but somebody's probably going to shoot me and say no, it's not. But great little airfield. Always makes me laugh because they have a split runway. So the runway is partial grass and partial tarmac, and the grass isn't usable when the weather's a bit wet, and it was a bit wet during the winter. So I phoned them up and said, can you tell me how long the runway is? Meaning, could you tell me how long the tarmac is? And the answer is, oh, well, it's less than 500 meters. And I'm like, great, that's helpful. And coming into land, it was definitely less than 500 meters, but we landed quite safely. And it's a lovely little airfield if you get a chance to go. Now, February rolled along, and I decided to do something completely different. I decided to do something that was actually on a bucket list for me, and that was to have a go at rotary flying, i.e. a helicopter. Now, most people these days seem to fly the little Robinsons, the R-22s, the R-44s, and that's their experience of flying helicopters. But no, I wanted to do something different. So I went and booked a Bell Jet Ranger, the 1970s classic helicopter. Every sort of American cop show, Superman picked one off a building. For me, it was the iconic helicopter. That, along with good old Airwolf, and for some reason I couldn't find Airwolf to have a go in. I had to pick the next best thing, which was the Jet Ranger, and it was fantastic. Flew across London, video here. It was fantastic. Flew across London, video here. I'll get this YouTube-y thing working at some point. Even managed to stick my wife in the back, who loved it, but fantastic flight. Many, many thanks to Paul White. Will I do rotary flying in the future? Only if I become a billionaire, because quite frankly, it's really, really expensive. And I mean really expensive. If you look at PPL flying and think, oh, that's expensive, and we all joke about the £200 burger. When you come to helicopter flying, it's a £400 burger, and you only get one of them a month. It's very expensive. Very, very rewarding, but yeah, for me, a little bit out of my price pocket. March came along and I managed to complete something that had taken me a while, but it wasn't my fault, and that was I got my complex rating signed off. Now, complex rating in the UK is basically wobbly prop and undercarriage. So anything that's got a prop that you can feather and an undercarriage, that's complex rating. I'd started my complex rating back in 2022, just after I completed my PPL. The main reason was, at the time, I didn't have a share in an aircraft, and I was looking for options, and one of the options at the flight school I was at was to hire a P-28 Arrow, which was a complex aircraft. Because it was complex, it wasn't being used as much for training, so the availability was better, but you needed to have the rating. So I jumped on that, started to get the rating, and then there were a few issues with the aircraft, and it disappeared off the airfield, and that was the end of my complex rating. Luckily, a year later, it had reappeared on the airfield, and I decided, yeah, I'm going to finish this off, even if I'm not going to use it in the future, still just get it done, and jumped back in it a couple of hours. Yep, complex rating complete. big tick. Now, at this point, I'm beginning to think about the future. I'm beginning to think about improving my flying, not just my flying by landing at different places, but actual my general skills. So one of the things I started looking at was an upset recovery course, or learning how to spin, or actually learning how to get out of a spin. Now, the big thing with PPL in the UK is we don't get taught spinning in terms of actually doing it. I believe they took it out of the PPL syllabus in the 80s because too many people were dying from actually practicing it than actually it occurring in real life. So we know we're taught sort of how to deal with the spin, but we don't generally have practical experience. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do the upset recovery course, but before I spend all the money, I know that if I go and sit on a roller coaster, I'm going to be sick. Infamous trip last year, went to Disney, went on the first roller coaster and spent the rest of the day feeling very, very green. So I know I don't deal with certain elements of negative G. So it was a case of, okay, I'll go to a school and say, give me some demonstration. Let's see how I deal with spins and general acrobatics. So what do? They pair me up with an acrobatics pilot, they stick me in an extra, and we go flying. And the video is here. I might have got that one right. But fantastic time in the extra. Yes, I did feel green. Strangely enough, not from the G, it was more the big blast of fumes I got when we were doing stalls at the top of the stall when everything just stopped. It was like, oh, don't feel too well here. But we did some rolls, we did some spins, and I got an idea as to whether I could cope with acrobatics or whether I could cope with the upset recovery course. The answer is, well, I haven't done the upset recovery course yet, but I think I'm probably going to attempt it at some point in the future. So who knows? But the acrobatics was fun and it generated a great video. April comes along. April was a big planned trip and it was all the way off to southern Germany to Friedrichshafen. Now bear in mind, I've tried to fly to France several times. I think by this point I'm probably on my third attempt to do the 2K, and for various reasons, mainly weather, we didn't make it. So suddenly going, let's go to southern Germany instead. It was a bit of a big jump, but I didn't go on my own. I had David, who's one of the other guys in the share for Kilo Kilo, and he's a very experienced pilot, and also virtually obsessed with flying in Europe. I mean, every week you speak to him and he's like, yeah, I'm going to Algeria today, or I'm going to southern France and I'm going to nip off to Italy. But great guy to fly with. And we had another pilot who's ex-RAF navigator. He was great as well. And we flew to Friedrichshafen, basically flew across to France, then flew into Germany, then down to southern Germany. Had some interesting weather, but flew to Friedrichshafen, and then we spent a couple of days at the Friedrichshafen air show, and then we flew back. And in fact, flying back was so routine, we didn't do a video of flying the back, so you can just guess we sort of got back, but no real big deal. Took about 5.5 hours in total, had a couple of stops, but there were just no issues. It was just flying in Europe. Flying in Europe is a lot different to flying in the UK. It's, I would say, less bureaucratic. At one point we were about to skirt into Luxembourg's airspace, so we asked Luxembourg for clearance and they're like, yeah, you can have the clearance for the entire country, not just like the 10 miles that we might have been going in. Yeah, no, you're clear for anything you want to do really, which was quite entertaining. But really, really nice, really enjoyed that flight. And if you get an opportunity to fly beyond the basics of the coastal cities like Le Touquet or Calais, do it. Flying in Europe, fantastic fun. I really enjoyed it and I felt I'd learned an awful lot. Now, May and June is we're really getting into the swing of things. The weather's got better, so we're doing quite a lot of flying, quite a lot of trips, Sandown, Duxford, the usual places that we tend to go to. One thing I will say is people sometimes assume that the videos that I post are just the flights that I do. They're not. I've done other flights, but I'm not going to video every single flight I do because, quite frankly, that would be boring. And sometimes I just want to go flying. I don't want to do a video about the flight because it's the half an hour setting everything up, doing the flight, and then the 3 or 4 hours afterwards doing the editing. And sometimes it's just fun to get in the aircraft, take off, go flying, land, have some lunch, come back. So June came along and we're again across the channel. This time we made it to Ostend. Lovely, lovely place, well organised, lovely town. Interesting, the town's quite far away from the actual airport, so we had to arrange coaches and things because it was a school flyout, so there was quite a lot of things going on, but really well organised. Really enjoyed it. Also, at some point in that month, I managed to pass the 200 hours mark, which, because of the amount of flying I was doing, it was like, oh, I've just hit 200 hours. Oh, okay, right, I'll carry on flying now. Didn't seem to be any big milestone, it was just a number. I also took the opportunity to start my IRR, I have to get that right because I keep calling it IIR, but instrument rating restricted. Now, in the UK, we effectively have two types of instrument rating. You have your full instrument rating, your full IR, which is what you need when you're a commercial pilot, allows you to fly in the airways, allows you to go into Class A airspace, or you have the restricted rating, which is UK only. You can't fly in Europe with a restricted rating, but it's almost again like a get out of jail free card. It demonstrates that you can do an approach, that you can fly using radio aids, and you can fly with in cloud. So it's a good thing to have, and I started on that course. June was also the first point when I had my in-flight emergency. Video here. Was it an emergency? Not really, no. It was just, you have to sometimes do these things for YouTube, but basically we were aiming to fly out to Latuke, again flying out to Latuke, and the low voltage light came up and we decided to divert, mainly because landing in a foreign country with a dodgy electrical system is probably not a good idea. Landing would be fine, it's whether it would start and then we could take off again. So we decided to go to our engineering base and get it sorted. But one of the things that air traffic control asked us was, do you wish to declare an emergency? And it was like, no. But it does make a good YouTube title. Summer's really kicking in now, and we decided to really break the boat out and flew to Leeds. Well, actually what we did was we flew to an air show at Leeds, which was probably our longest continuous flight, mainly based on all of our bladders, because by the time we got there it was like, land, I need the loo now. It was a nice flight all the way up to Church Fenton, and we looked at the air show. I mean, it was a private flyer north. I'd done private flyer south a couple of times, again video here, and it was like, yeah, it's pretty aircraft, and strange enough for the High Wycombe one, quite a few pretty cars and some golf clubs. I'm not sure where that sort of fits into the grand scheme of pilots, but maybe it's just because they think we have money. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're a pilot, you don't have any money. That's why you're a pilot, because you've spent it all doing your training and trying to fly. Pilots don't have money. People in the back have the money. But it was a great little flight up to Church Fenton, and on the way back we did a slight detour and flew over the Humber Bridge. It was really nice, apart from the fact the flight back was even longer than the flight out there, and we really did need the loo by the time we came back. Now we're rolling into August, and yes, we have finally made it. We made it to Latuke. 364 days it took us to get to Latuke, although that's actually the time between the first attempt and when we actually arrived. But we finally got to Latuke. I finally managed to fulfill a promise to my wife, which was flying to Latuke, and it's great. Lovely little place. Would I do it in August again? Maybe not, because it was very packed with tourists, and the rugby tournaments were about to start, so I think there was a lot of tourists from there. But great place, really helpful, lovely ATC, really laid back at the airfield. It was great, loved it. I can understand why people go to Latuke. It's just wonderful, and if you get the chance to go to Latuke, even if you live a little bit further north than Watford, because it does seem to be anyone who lives south of Watford sort of can go there quite easily. If you live further north, you've still got to get down half of the UK to get there. But Latuke, brilliant, highly recommend it, love it. Oh, and guess what? Video here. Now, on the subject of videos, I think this was about the time when I published a video about one of my worst flights. Well, actually, it was about one of my worst landings. It was a hot day. Everything just sort of conspired, and I had a bit of a crap landing at Elstree. In fact, it wasn't actually a landing initially, it was a go-around. So it was a go-round, and then I went round, and I came back and landed. And it was a video that was actually entitled, How Not to Land. And then everyone on YouTube decided to criticise my landing, not really understanding that this was a demonstration of the things not to do. The demonstration of the Swiss cheese model, where little things soon build up to bigger things. And it was quite entertaining. I mean, the number of people who are so obsessed with landing on centreline and then ignore the fact that when you land on the centreline, that's not the centreline for them. The fact that I have cameras that sort of stuck off on the sides of wings, which means the centre line is going to be slightly offset. And even when I showed someone a video of my front wheel on the tarmac on the centre line, they went, "Oh, that's not the centre line, you're like 2 inches off." It's like, guys and girls, the runway at Elstree is big, and the runway at Elstree has got lots of bumps in it, and sometimes actually the centre line is not the best place to be on. But I aim for the middle. If I'm out by 6 inches, I'm not a commercial pilot. I learn from my mistakes. And unfortunately, sometimes I publish my mistakes. And then I have to spend 6 weeks explaining my mistakes, despite the fact I explained them in the video. But anyway, that's the perils of YouTube. September's now coming on, and the weather's beginning to creep down a little bit, but I still managed to do a little trip all the way up to Snowdon, again, one of those bucket list places. Flew up there with Jack, and it's a little bit of an anticlimax. In fact, I haven't even got round to finishing the edit on the video, mainly because some of the audio got broken and there was a few bits and technical issues. But from the air, I'm sorry, Wales, but from the air, Snowdon does not look that impressive. It's just like a hill with a railway line going up it. It's very impressive when you walk up it, and I have climbed up it in Clement Mether. So, yeah, I have done it in the past, but from the air, it's just a hill. I'm sorry, but anyway, I will get around to publishing that video. However, September was also the point in my flying where I made possibly a good decision, and that was the fact that I made a decision to stop doing something. Now, it wasn't I was stop doing YouTube videos, because obviously I'm still doing YouTube videos. I'm sitting here talking to a camera, doing a YouTube video. No, what I decided to do was stop doing my IIR. Now, why did I stop doing my IIR? The simple answer is I stopped enjoying it. And that is it, plain and simple. I got about 4 or 5 hours. I was getting on well with the instructor. And I think I had a couple of flights where I just felt, I wouldn't say completely overwhelmed, although there was one point where he showed me the plate for Oxford. And I was like, what the hell? Oh yeah, we're going to fly this, and we're going to do this, and then we're going to do the circuit and the hold. And don't forget, when you do the hold, you've got to remember to add 2 onto that and add 3 onto that, and the weather, and also Kilo had a couple of issues with the accuracy of the CDIs. In fact, here's one of them. It's the one that failed, and I had to get replaced. But just that point where I stopped enjoying it, and I made a decision, no, if I'm not enjoying this, I'm going to stop. Some people might criticize me for that, but I'm not doing this to become a commercial pilot. I'm not doing this to become an instructor. I'm doing this because I enjoy flying. I hope I enjoy flying. And if you just get to the point where you're just doing something and you're bashing head against the wall, I wasn't bashing my head against the wall. I just wasn't enjoying it. I almost felt that I was wasting the instructor's time sometimes, because he was very focused. Do this module, do this module, do this module. We'll work through this, we'll get this done, and I'll get you clear. And in the UK, the instrument rated restricted is a minimum of 15 hours. And he was like, I want you to pass in 15 hours. It's like, I don't work that way. I didn't do my PPL in 45 hours. I want to enjoy the journey. I want to understand what's working for me, what's not working for me, which bits am I finding hard, which bits I'm finding not hard. And in fact, I might actually do a video about my journey of the IR, because afterwards I had a number of conversations with other people, other PPL holders, other instructors even, who actually hit a similar point where it's like, why am I doing this? This is something that is quite difficult to do. It's quite complex. If you've got an up-to-date IR or instrument rating restricted, good on you, because I know how much work is involved. But equally, it's something that you need to keep using. If you're going to use it commercially, then obviously you're going to use it all the time. But an instrument rated restricted, if I'm not going to use it for 6 months because the weather's good, I'm not deliberately going to go and fly in crap weather and, oh look, the clouds are coming down, the cloud base is low, the weather's coming, I'm going to go flying. No, I'm going to look at that and go, no, I'm not going to go flying. It's more of a, again, my favourite term, get out of jail free card. It just reached the point where I was like, I've got too many other things going on. I also had things like family holidays coming up. business was changing, like lots of people who run businesses, things change in time. So it was just a case of, no, I need to stop. And I spoke to the instructor, and he was great about it, and said, yeah, I'm just going to stop. Am I going to go back to it? I might do. 2024 is another year, as they say. I might consider actually doing it more as an intensive course. So literally, I've got nothing else to concentrate on apart from doing this course, and see how that goes. Who knows? Who knows what the future holds? Now we get into October. Actually, I'm going to add October, November, and December, because, quite frankly, it all went downhill. Actually, it didn't. What really happened was real life crept in. It went downhill in terms of I went on holiday, I then had lots of work on, and I didn't do much flying. And in fact, in November, I did one flight purely and simply just to keep my currency up, so I could still carry on taking passengers. And the 5 or 6 other times I booked the aircraft were cancelled because of weather. Unfortunately, that's one thing in the UK that we have lots of. We have low cloud, we have storms, and in fact recently we seem to have storm after storm after storm after storm. You seem to get a storm, and then you get a day where you can go flying, and everyone goes flying, and then you get another storm. Unfortunately, the day that everyone goes flying is the day that I've actually got other things on and I have to go to work. So, unfortunately, I haven't done any flying, which is a bad thing because my currency's dropped and my competency has probably dropped. So I do have a couple of flights planned for January, should the weather actually perk up, just to concentrate on getting my flying back up to a certain level. I'm not planning on actually recording those because I'm going to concentrate on my flying. I'm very much one of these people who, I completely agree, having cameras in the cockpit can be a distraction. It's not the distraction that people think it is, in terms of if they see someone talking to a camera, oh, you're distracted, you're not flying the aircraft. People forget that we fly the aircraft, we're looking out, that is the number one priority. Aviate, navigate, communicate. So I'm looking out at the aircraft all of the time. But what you see on the camera is I'm going to cut just to the bit where I'm spending 3 seconds talking to you. I spend more time talking to my passenger. If I don't have a passenger, I spend more time talking to my bottle of water because I'll talk to myself. I'll talk to myself about my checklists. I'll talk to myself about my flying. Oh, I saw XYZ over there. Oh, I saw so-and-so. Oh, shit, he's close. Who's he? Oh, why wasn't he showing? Oh, well, typical. But I talk anyway. So the fact I've got cameras in place doesn't mean I'm being distracted. I actually find it more distracting, the setup beforehand, because I've got to spend probably half an hour rigging all the cameras. Then I switch them all on. I then get them working. And then I go into my mode of, right, I am now going to do my checklists and do everything else. Yeah, I'll be doing a couple of flights in January just to get my currency back up, just to get more flexible and sort of happier with my flying. Still have Kilo, and I love her. At the moment, there's just no way I'm going to go and find another aircraft chat. She's beautiful. She's going to be coming up for our annual in the next month or so. Depends if we actually manage to go flying. We've still got a couple of hours, a few hours left. The group share has been great. After a year and probably a year and a half, having access to an aircraft via a share, I still maintain the best thing about a share is the other people. That's the most important thing. Everything else is just down to how much is it going to cost. And in fact, the share hasn't actually cost that much, surprisingly enough. We've changed a CDI. We had to replace the DME because that just didn't want to do anything. We sent it off to be repaired. And 3 months later, they're still going back going, it's not repaired. I haven't done as much flying as I wanted in 2023, mainly because life crept in. But hopefully I'm going to do more flying in 2024. And hopefully you're going to see more friends flying with me, because we're now beginning to talk to people who want to go flying with us. Not necessarily other pilots, but just friends who are like, yeah, I want to come up in your plane. And that could be quite interesting because I've got some interesting friends. And some of them are more famous or infamous than others, but who knows? Just watch this space. But anyway, if you're still with me, please, thank you, thank you, thank you. Don't forget you can subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And don't forget the old thumbs up. YouTube loves the thumbs ups. But whatever you do, please, 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 fly safely and have fun. Bye. Oh, and by the way, Happy New Year. Bye. Is that really 49 minutes of me rabbiting on?